Good evening, everyone. Welcome you all. I, Saurabh Bhattacharjee, on behalf of the History Society, welcome you all to this session of ours. Since last year and a half, we have been able to do quite a lot of sessions out of core technology spectrum. So this time we decided to do something different. So whenever we run through YouTube, we all see sessions on topics like, does God exist or not? Lost technology, cities which are maybe not part of the main discourse right now. So what about them? And the speakers that pop up in our mind are Randall Pollock. So it's been long that we badly needed one of Randall Pollock of our own. So who better than a professional chemical engineer and an executive MBA who had experience of 16 years working with General Electric. Ladies and gentlemen, it's almost a dream come true for us. Nilesh Nilkanth Oak ji with us today. He will speak today and tomorrow. So I request you all to put your mobiles in silent mode and welcome Nilesh ji with a rousing applause for his session today.
Namaskar everyone, thank you for coming. Let's make this light and fun and educational and some informative. My goal is to tell you something that you already know. My goal is to tell you something that you don't know. And my goal is to provoke you occasionally. He says, what? This is impossible, okay? And we are going to do this through the science framework, the engineering framework, and so hopefully I set you up for an interesting question and answer session, okay? Only request when we do this, please, when the time comes for question and answer, please focus on only the area I'm covering today. Tomorrow again, I hope, actually it will tell me whether you liked today's lecture or not, okay? All right, let's go. All right, why only India has Itihāsa? So if you are giving a talk, you need a title. So that's the title. This was about 7 years ago. I was presenting at Oxford conference. Now some of you I met just before the lecture. They said, you have listened to my Surya Siddhanta presentation. Can you raise the hand again? Whoever was there, okay. So it was that, possibly that Surya Siddhanta presentation I was doing. And there was something else on the Ayurveda, the time of Sushruta, you know, the father of surgery. It's a very interesting format. Like typically you go to the conferences and you run from one talk to another and you know, there is not enough time to meet everyone. This is a very interesting format. In fact, we had like 3-day long conference, 18 talks, only 18 talks. And after every 2 talks, 20 minutes, there is like a 90-minute break, you know, that you actually can go in a room and discuss to your heart's content, you know, everything you want to do. So after my talk, again, we had this break of 90 minutes. And this professor came to me, essentially shouting at me, saying, yeah, you are talking of this 12,000 BC, 14,000-year-old epoch in Surya Siddhanta, but you don't have history. That was his comment, okay? This was from University of Chicago. So this was a short piece of dialogue. So he just said, but you don't have history. And you know, depending on the context, depending on how much time you have, depending on your mood, you may respond in a different way. So I was in a good mood, I think, you know. So I said, you are right. And that was a shock to him because he didn't expect that. But I said, we have a Itihāsa. We don't have history, but we have Itihāsa. We as in Indians, okay? Because he was referring to India. The conference was on the pre-modern science and technology in Asia. I think that was the title, so you know the context of it. And then, of course, he exactly didn't say that, what the hell is that, but close to it, you know. He said, Itihāsa, now what is it? And we went on, I didn't explain it. But the reason I mentioned this, after this, I got to thinking. So I said, we have Itihāsa. But then I realized not only that we as in Indian civilization has Itihāsa, and we are only talking of surviving civilizations, and I'll come to that in a minute. So I'll come to that, why only India has a Itihāsa. That was the realization that came upon me after some time, not during that conversation. But before I take you there, let me explain what is Itihāsa. Anyone wants to volunteer? What is Itihāsa as your understanding of it? Very good. What has happened earlier? Any Sanskrit experts in the room? Itihāsa. Aisa hi hua. You know that, but you are not a Sanskrit expert, right? No. Thank you. No, very good. So now I can bluff, you know? Okay. All right. Thank you. That is very true. Okay. Itihāsa, this is how it happened. That does not mean there are no embellishments. If you read, for example, Bill Clinton biography, you know, for most part, it is how it happened. Doesn't mean there are no embellishments. Okay. He's going to put it, or if it's autobiography, he's going to always tell the story from his point of view a little bit. So there are things like that. But still, broadly speaking, you can actually validate, you can verify the things that happen in the life of Bill Clinton, for example. So Itihāsa, this is how it happened. Now, if you want to look at what is the purpose of it, okay, there is a broader definition in the Indian context. And again, I'm sure, sir, you would know it. Dharmartha kama mokshanam. Please, can you say it? And moksha. Yeah. No, very good. Upadesham samanvitam, you know. So we need as a guidebook for achieving dharma, artha, kama, moksha. And so how is this guidebook prepared? Purva vrittam. Now if you think you didn't know Sanskrit, you will be amazed how easy it is. Purva vrittam. Can everyone understand what that means? Purva, past, previous. Vrittam, a narration, like a vrittapatra, like a newspaper. Purva vrittam katha yuktam itihāsam prachakshate. A historical event is taken, it is narrated in a katha form, katha in the sense made it somewhat interesting so that it grabs your attention, and that is called Itihāsa. How many of you are familiar with the case studies that are used, say, anyone from law, business, medicine, and even other disciplines, right? But you are familiar, like case studies. If you go to a business school, MBA or program, what you do essentially is tons of case studies, maybe 40 case studies by the time you're done with MBA, okay? What is a case study? They actually take a realistic case. Now, some of the things for practical reasons they may hide, okay? But there is another reason why they may hide, because they want to see how you think in solving that problem. You actually are going to see that is also done in Itihāsa. Therefore, if you realize all the answers in Itihāsa are not given. As far as the India is concerned, what are the Itihāsa? Ramayana and Mahabharata, okay? There may be many more, but we have not, I mean, they're lost to us, okay? So what is it? The Ramayana and Mahabharata, after thousands and thousands of years, we still fight about the incidents happening there. Did Rama do this right? Was Bhishmacharya all right when Draupadi Vastraharan was supposedly happening? Why did he not say anything? Krishna did something, and is this right? Isn't that the kind of questions you see in a case study at the end of it? Like what the CEO should do now? Should he acquire that business, or she acquire that business, or sell the company, and things of that nature? Because it's really, the idea is to make us think, okay? Train our brain. And that's why it is Dharmartha kama mokshanam upadesham samanvitam purva vrittam katha yuktam itihāsam prachakshate. So that's what Itihāsa is. Now the next point, why only India has Itihāsa? This is what dawned on me, and my good friend Jeffrey Armstrong, if you have heard the name, he's also known as Kavindra Rishi. He's an instant poet actually, you know, I mean, right here he can be here, he can look at the audience, watch everyone, how the expressions are, and by the end of the lecture, he can actually read the poem to you, okay? Shigra Kavi, you know, that's what we say. So he said, you know what happened, Nilesh, you have done a great research, but the challenge is when you talk about your astronomy evidence or any evidence, and people even, especially in the West, where I am, people in the West don't know what Ramayana is, what Mahabharata is, what Itihāsa is, you know, Sanskrit is a kind of challenging. They don't know because they don't have a text which has astronomy evidence embedded in it. There are some text in Egypt, there are some Mesopotamian text and so on. But Bible frankly has nothing. And as far as the history is considered for the West, how many of you know that until Darwin, which is say about 150 years ago, for the West, history simply meant Bible. How many of you knew that? Very good. There are some couple of exceptions, like Herodotus wrote history of the world, But do you know what that history of the world is? Basically between Romans and Greeks and, just whatever he could see in the Mediterranean, and that's perfectly fine. That was a world to him, So that's that. But why only India has a Itihāsa? As far as what we have today. Maybe in South America, the Mayans had the language, but when the Spaniards went there 500 years ago, they completely destroyed so many things. Just like we had the burning of libraries here, they also had a burning of libraries in the Mexico City. Okay, Tenochtitlan, they also had the big burning of libraries. So we don't know what we lost there. But based on what we have, only India has Itihāsa, and here is the reason. So, the first thing, so suppose what is happening today and you want to preserve this for posterity. What are 2 or 3 things that you need? Something that is happening today in the world that you want to preserve it, the narration of it for posterity. What do we need? What is it? We write it down, which means we need a language. Okay? What kind of language do we need? We need a language which is very able and very capable so that we can very nicely describe everything that we want to do, but something else. The language that is also has low to no drift. And what do I mean by that? Suppose take Shakespearean English, not that long ago. How many of you have read Shakespeare's play? Okay? Yeah? Did you take an English course trying to understand what he's trying to say? No? What happens? Like we have to, actually in UK, there are courses that are taught to understand Shakespearean English, okay, before you start enjoying the plays. Which means in less than 200 years, the language changed. Any Marathi speaking people in the audience? Okay, so, and otherwise also, you would have heard of Jnaneshwari, for example, the Santa Jnaneshwar. He wrote a Jnaneshwari commentary in Marathi on Bhagavad Gita. But today, those people, you can ask them, if those who raise the hand, only 800 years ago he wrote it. But today, if we have to understand Jnaneshwari, we need a translation of that Marathi in modern Marathi. So there is also a drift and shift in our language. So we need something that has low to no drift. That language is Sanskrit. In an existing surviving thing, that language is Sanskrit. There is no other language. It will surprise you. I'm going to talk about the timing of Mahabharata and Ramayana. It will surprise you something that was composed to document this thousands of years ago in Ramayana times, another epoch, Mahabharata times. We can read today. When I say we, I mean if you speak one of the Indian language, and if you spend some time just reading that same thing, you are going to get 40, 50, 60% of what is being said in Ramayana, what is being said in Mahabharata. And you don't know Sanskrit. I don't know Sanskrit, guys, by the way. I never learned officially Sanskrit. Because of the power of that Sanskrit, it's an extremely scientific language. We'll not talk about that. The second thing, so now the language will tell you what happened, possibly why happened, the rational. But if you're talking of Itihāsa in the sense of history, you need a timestamp. And you know what was used for history? Astronomy. In the Indian context, of course, the world context now, astronomy is time. If you have a clock on the wall, no, they are all gone with the smartphones. Oh yeah, but yeah, it's not, it's digital one, But if, right? But if you see the circle, the dial, do you know where it came from? From basically the sun cycle, literally the shadow of a sun, and that was the dial and so on. So essentially, even the time that we are measuring now, modified in a digital way, is really as from astronomy. Astronomy is time. And that's the second principle. You have to have a sophisticated astronomy to embed this information in such a way that even when the calendars are lost, it can be still retrieved, okay? India had a very sophisticated astronomy. Those are my talks on Surya Siddhanta and how ancient and how sophisticated is the astronomy. The third thing, okay, so we have a language, we wrote it down, we have astronomy, so we embedded in an encrypted timestamp. But if we don't have the tradition that preserves that knowledge, then it's lost. That's happened to many of the civilization. I'm sure they have their history too. but it's practically lost. Then it's like he said, she said. That's what you will find in Herodotus' history of the world. So what we need is a wisdom tradition. In an Indian context, we call it Guru Shishya Parampara. You will see Mahabharata was preserved in the same fashion, almost like there is some reward attached to it. Maybe you will go to Swarga. If you remember this and you pass it on to the next generation, your place in Swarga is assured. You say, oh, is that right? Let me get this by heart or something like this. So wisdom tradition preserved it. So that's the only reason. Now think of these three and go around the world and see if you have got all or even any one of the three. And say, well, hold on, the Mesopotamia has astronomy, and we can discuss that, okay, when that happens. Okay, so this is the reason why only India has a history, or India has a Itihāsa. So time, place, circumstances, you might have heard the word Desha, Kala, Patra, Desha, Kala, Echa, Patra, Echa, Taddanam, Satvikam, Srutam, and so on, okay. And that's how the knowledge of civilization is preserved. This is that Intel inside, in the Indian context. Do you know the story of Intel? Like they have to do this whole marketing campaign, you know, because the Intel is there in 286, you know, and the 386, 486 and all that. But nobody knows, right? You know, people say, I took the laptop, it works. But Intel has to show its importance, you know. The main crux is Intel. They started with 286 and 386 and how 386 is better than 286, the whole campaign. But people say, what is that? So they said, you know, there is a sticker. It is no sticker on this one, but you have seen that sticker, Intel inside, you know. So sometimes you have to just say it. So the three circles that I showed, the Sanskrit language with low to astronomy, sophisticated and precise astronomy, and a continuous Guru Shishya Parampara. That is the Intel inside. That's the reason we have the Itihāsa preserved. Now there is some other aspect of it. Again, this is my always a challenge when I give a lecture. Have you heard of Veda as a word? Veda, Rigveda? Okay. Have you heard of Vedanga? Nice. Okay, some of you at least. These are the 6 Vedanga. Okay, Shiksha, Vyakaran, Nirukta, Chandas, Jyotisha, and Kalpa. The engineering here. So think of when you design something, form, fit, and function. Yes? Or this is something alien to you? No? Form, fit, and function, think of as a foundation. So Shiksha is like word. O, A, I, E. Ga, Kha, Ga, Gha, Nya, Cha, Cha, Ja, Ja, Ya. Those are the basic foundations. Then Vyakarana, you put it together. Utpatti, the word meaning, like, you know, the tree comes from truth. Okay, fixed, steady, like that. Steady, by the way, comes from stha. Okay, sthala, sthala, it's everywhere. Steady, stool, stable. Okay, all those words come from that. If you go, so now some people, I see some question marks. Afterwards, take this as a homework. You can go to etymology online. Etymology in Sanskrit is Nirukta, number 3. You can go to etymology online, type an English word, and just don't stop with one. Keep on going and look at the roots of that word. When it comes to something called pi, P-I-E, which never existed, but it's a hypothetically fake language that is being created, but essentially nothing but Sanskrit in most cases. And when you look at the root of that P-I-E, or sometimes they will say Sanskrit also, immediately you say, I know this word. 40% of the time, about 40% of the word in English, you will find a Sanskrit root if you go through etymology online. Do this today, come back with a response tomorrow if you have objection against this, okay? Try at least 40 words and see what you find, okay? So what does this do? Shiksha is the words. The Vyakarana, it puts it together as a utpatti. That's how the basic word is formed. Nirukta is the evolution of that word. Just example is like yoga. What does yoga means? The literally in a Vyakarana sense, it means yuj. Dhatu is a yuj, like connecting. But now, you know, you do all kinds of gymnastics and come and say, I did yoga. What did you connect? Well, you did connect something. You connected your body with the rhythm of the nature and so on and so forth. But yoga is used in all kinds of things. You may be just closing your eyes or you may be sleeping. You didn't come to the class and they say, what were you doing? You say, I was doing yoga. Okay, so you may use it in a funny way. Different meanings are attached to it. That's the Nirukta. Different words are used. The Chandas, everyone understand Chanda? The prosody, you know, like say Bhagavad Gita. How many of you can say one verse of Bhagavad Gita? If I ask you, I will not make you stand and say it. How many of you can at least, yeah, okay. Who wants to say it just voluntarily? So I will not point at anyone. Just one verse of Bhagavad Gita, please. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, give him a big hand. You know, it's not very easy. Now, so you got the Shiksha, you got the Vyakaran, there is a Vyakaran in it, you got the Nirukta, every word has a meaning, and then the Chanda, that is the Anushtup Chanda. Dharmakshetre, Kurukshetre, Samaveta, Yuyutsava, Mamaka, Pandavasheva, Kimakurvata, Sanjaya. Now, if you are remembering this and after some time you haven't done it and you start saying it, what happens? Dharmakshetre, Kurukshetre, Samaveta. You don't remember the word, but you know how many syllables you need. Okay, that's a way of mistake proofing. Oh, I need there. Samaveta, Yuyutsava, whatever it is, right? So that's a way to help you remember this thing. So these are done for a reason, okay? So that is that control, mistake proofing also, but beauty, pleasing, gratifying, easy to remember, and so on, okay? And the Jyotisha is that timestamp we talked about. And this one is basically for a specific application. The way it is done for, say, Mahabharata is not exactly the done for, say, Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Sutra is remembered in a very different way, just like we write the formula equal to mc square, f equal to ma. Okay, I will show you the formula. Patanjali goes something like that. Pratyaksha, Anumana, Agama, Pramanani. Done. One formula. Viparyayo mithya jnanam atadrupa pratishtam. If you go exactly opposite of that, you get the false knowledge. Shabda jnananupati vastu shunyo vikalpa. These are very small formulas. That is a sutra, okay? So you may use it in a different context. I'm just going to use that. If that's exactly what I just showed you, plus the method I'm going to show you, the scientific method, everyone is familiar with it. This is what a quick summary of my 30 years of work. Okay, I showed, and I'm going to explain it to you, that Mahabharata War, which is our one history text, happened 5561 BCE. Somebody says, is this approximate? No. I mean, is it possible that that might have been 5565? No. It's 5561 BCE. Okay, 5561 BCE plus 2024, that's what, 7584, 85, something like that, those many years ago. The war year specifically. Ramayana, the Ram Ravan Yuddha, that specific year 12,209 BC. Now I'm showing this because I was successful. I'm not saying that for every text that we have or for every instance we have, necessarily we have the evidence to figure this out. Sometimes all we can do is just approximate. We might say Sushruta, for example, the other paper I presented at Oxford conference, all I could say there is that Sushruta is definitely more than 8,000 years old. I mean, he occurred, his time was definitely before 6000 BC. But if you ask me his year, I don't know. There is no evidence, sufficient evidence that can help me decide that. So you understand? It's not like every time it's possible. And what I figure it out for Rigveda, and I'll show you, is that definitely some portions of Rigveda are older than 21,000 years. So just a quick mnemonics for you guys, like we all remember formulas. So if you want to give a quick summary of our Itihāsa in the Indian context, Mahabharata happened more than 7,000 years ago, Ramayana happened more than 14,000 years ago, and Rigveda definitely more than 21,000 years ago. 7, 14, 21. If this one message you can take just on a Shraddha right now, just on a conviction, just on a reverence for me, but you don't have to take anything blindly. Okay, so Shraddha, you know, basically Shraddha is blind, but so is Ashraddha. Okay, both are blind. So that's my summary. So let's go and look at some of the interesting things about it. Okay. I need help. Like, so when I click on this, it's doing, okay, there we go. Okay, so anytime you are doing some scientific project, you need to know what the problem is. Here is the problem. So when I started about 30 years ago, here was the problem. 30 is approximately, not 30 years for every one of those. So Mahabharata, before I came on the scene of researching this is called Purva Paksha also, like just taking a stock of the situation. You write a review paper, you look at the review paper and see, hey, what has been done so far, okay? So Mahabharata, when I started, there were 130 different researchers or claiming to be researchers, some of them researchers, others just saying, me too, okay, whatever it is. saying that Mahabharata happened sometime between 7300 BC through 400 CE. Do you know who was a 400 CE, just for fun? Professor Hopkins at Harvard University. So maybe one evening he had a nice glass of red wine, he said, let me also do this, 400 CE. Because in the West, what happens is, many times they look at the age of the document that is available. Okay, they will date it, which is great. That's also a very nice thing. But they will say, okay, so that's 400 CE, that's 400 CE. Many people ask me, so what is the oldest available document on Ramayana or Mahabharata that is available? I say that's maybe 14th century, if you are lucky, 15th century. But that was our Guru Shishya Parampara. The palm leaf, okay, Bhujapatra or Bhurjapatra, it has a lifetime of about 500 years, if you are lucky. So every 500 years, it needs to be rewritten, and then preserved. So we don't go by the date of the document itself. And I'll tell you why not, or why we should do it. Ramayana, million years, how many of you have heard this? You might have believed it, you might still believe it. Million years ago. Very good. And where does that come from? 4 lakh, yeah, it comes from Kali Yuga is a 432,000 years. Okay, so that's only maybe 5,000 years are gone. That's what you would have heard. That's the wrong information, by the way. 5,000 is not the correct number, but let's move on. Dwapar is twice of that, twice of 432,000, so 864,000. And Ramayana happened in Treta Yuga, which is before that. So 864,000 plus 5,000, whatever it is, are about million years ago. That's like taking something, some measurement from here and using it somewhere here. Like when the trucks are going on the highway, they are also measured, their weight is measured at some point, okay? Or when you go to the market to buy potatoes, like, you say fine, or whatever, the fruits. Even when it's like a 1 kilo, the guy gives it to you, right? Will that person do the same thing while selling gold? No. It needs a different level of precision. So something is taken from here, applied in the wrong way. That's what has caused the confusion. Million years and all the way to, okay, some other person sitting, with a white wine this time, something. Rigveda, timeless. You would have heard that. Rigveda, it's a apaurushaya, we don't know, it's not done by human beings. Then who did do it? In the meter and everything. But that's a one theory, one way of looking at it. And all the way to 1200 BCE, you know where that 1200 BCE comes from? Max Muller and few others, or what I call Aryan invasion nonsense. Not theory, okay? We'll talk about the theory part, okay? There is not even a single element that is required for the theory, okay? So let's go look at this. This is what happens. People say, why bother knowing when did Ramayana happen, when did Mahabharata happen? And this apply for everything. Surya Siddhanta, Sushruta. Oh, why do I care how long Sushruta was? We care because based on what you know, just based on a Wikipedia, let's say, or what people tell you, you form your belief, and that changes your feelings, and that decides what you do. Just as an example, I'm going to show this to you. So let's say we start. How many of you know this, that our Mahabharata text, we just limit to Mahabharata and Ramayana for now. Mahabharata and Ramayana, yes, it has Pathabhed. You understand Pathabhed? No? Variations. Like the way Shlok is coming, so Dharmakshetre, Kurukshetre, Samaveta, Yudhava, if you go to critical edition of Mahabharata, you might see some difference. Say for example, Yamasya Putra Abhidhaya Tiryak. Another manuscript of Mahabharata might say Somasya Putra Abhidhaya Tiryak. Are you with me? Some slight variation. Other one is manuscripts may have variation in narration. Sometimes there are interpolation, all kinds of errors. Because see, remember, somebody is copying. So translation, transposition, transcriptions, interpolations, all kinds of error gets added. Okay, somebody who is just typing, I mean, if you want to, now these days we all do it. But when I did our thesis, we have to go to someone we didn't know typing, or the electronic typing and something. And so we sit next person and we say the thing. So when we say thermodynamics or enthalpy or entropy, tell me the spelling, right? The guy is saying this. A person can make a mistake. So that's what causes the errors. Now, because those errors exist, do you know what people think because of that? Therefore they believe, oh, okay, so if I cannot trust the original text, then it's confusing, conflicting, maybe unintelligible descriptions. You may not be saying it. These are Mahabharata researchers. And even I'm not talking, if you want to just divide, calling it some, like say, anti I'm not even talking of anti. I will say even the pro-Indic researchers will have this confusion, the belief. They must be confusing. Epics have gone through heavy interpolations. If you hear that, you ask the question on a science-minded person based on what? You're saying it has got a lot of interpolations. That's what I hear. I say, what's your evidence? Oh, everybody knows. Oh, that's your evidence? Of course it has interpolations. But remember the word heavy. It is just casually and carelessly thrown in. There are no heavy and interpolations. Actually, that's what you can find out. Epic evidence is open to interpretation. Yeah, fine. Better to talk about the values. How many of you have heard this? And maybe you believe yourself too. Better to talk about the values and not the historicity. Why does it matter? Just look at the values. Have you heard this from some great folks? Okay, they are wrong. You know why? Because even to understand the values, you need the context of time. Let's go to Mahabharata. When the Chitravirya and Vichitravirya, you know, the two young sons of Satyavati, when they were on the throne and Bhishma was ruling the Kuru kingdom, when they grew and came to an age, what happened? Bhishma goes to Kashi, pulls the daughters of king of Kashi, comes to Hastinapur, get them wedded to Chitravirya, Vichitravirya. Try doing that today. With the time, things change. There are different types of vivaha and so on. So you need the context. Okay. Next one. So if you have a certain belief, what happens next is you have certain feelings based on what you know or what you think you know, the beliefs and then the feeling. So therefore, you may feel uncertain about our history in the epics. You may feel inadequate to talk about Mahabharata Ramayana because you have not read it, or you say, why should I read if there are interpolations? And I cannot trust the information. You may feel skeptical about this text. You may feel embarrassed to talk about it. Somebody says, oh, but so your all history is in the Mahabharata. Please, yeah, you know, I mean, nobody talks in India about Mahabharata. Well, America talks about Mahabharata. You'll find very interesting. In the business case, they use not just Mahabharata, but the Paila Bajirao in Marathi, or everyone should know that, or Chhatrapati Shivaji's strategy, war strategy. They are studying it darn seriously. Okay, very, very interesting. And if you have these beliefs, if you have this feeling based on what you think you know, these are typical the action. I'm not saying your actions, but these are the kind of actions that you may end up. Careless and casual hand waving about Itihāsa. People feel embarrassed if the subject of, say, Indian knowledge system is a keyword these days, IKS, you know, if it comes into the picture. They may avoid the primary evidence. I'm talking of Indic Mahabharata researchers. These 130 claims I talked about, more than 99% of the claims do even make use of the Mahabharata text. Now, how stupid is that? I don't think there is any other word. You are trying to do something about Mahabharata and you don't want to touch Mahabharata. You want to do physics, don't touch physics book. Okay? But that's why? Because it starts with that information. There are interpolations. Blabber nonsense, and I'm saying this is from well-decorated researchers. Epics may have history, but they are not historical. What the hell that means? Or they may be historical, but there is no history in them. And then I actually contact them and I say, please, can you explain me what you mean by that? And they take silence. In America, we call it Fifth Amendment. Okay, saying nothing. Okay, so method, I'll go fast through this. Everyone knows, science guys, engineering guys, okay, so what do? Sir Karl Popper, he will describe this. A scientific method is what? The logic of scientific method, scientific discovery, is a triangulation of explanation, prediction, testing in the context of a theory, in the context of a background knowledge. Why do you do this? To solve a certain problem that nobody has solved so far, or not to your satisfaction. I call this DCM machine. In America, people like the lingos. DCM, oh yeah, I love it. You know, DCM machine, doubt clearing machine. Okay, like you know, you hear Rahul Gandhi talk about yahan se potato dalo, aloo dalo, sona nikalo, type of thing. Okay, kind of works like that, you know. Methodology, epistemology, and ontology, I said, you know, there are always academics in the crowd. Well, this is an academic institute, so people like some long words. Epistemology. What is your epistemological views? Everyone knows what epistemology is? In a simple language, can we know something? Can we know the truth? You know, I mean, what is the limitations on our knowledge? What is our ability? What is ontology? The proof. How do I know that I have reached the truth or the best approximation to the truth? Okay, those are the words. You can go to Google or Wikipedia and entertain yourself for a whole night, you know, on those words. But the reason I mention this, please take a minute and spend time on this. I don't want to give you the impression, because that's what happens. Because successful, now people think, oh, so what's the big deal? So you figured out the time. Galileo says, once the discovery is made, everyone understands it. The point is to make the discovery. Okay, once you understand and once you make, so it's not that easy, but also it's not complicated. So the question is which manuscript to use, or they ask me, which manuscript did you use? When there were different variant readings, which reading did you pick? And my answers are in the bold answers there. Okay, you can go through the list. These are that you have to do before you perform your labs. So just these answers, but if you decide, make a clear decision, and so what happens if there is somebody has an objection? Hey, I have an objection with your, let's say with your number 3, translation errors and choice of translation. Should I take existing one or you make your own? I'm saying your call. You can take existing one, you can make a new one. Still people can ask you a question, why did you change that, and so on. Once you make this, actually it makes it a bit simpler. Everyone has gone through linear programming here, okay? Simplex method and all of that. So it kind of becomes a simpler one, you know, like because you have decided to follow a certain path. And now within the Mahabharata, there are so many things to discover, but I am focusing only on the dating of it. Actually, when I published my first book, it's pure on the dating and astronomy evidence. And one lady from UK asked me, but why did you not discuss Draupadi Vastraharan? I'm not kidding. Well, that's very interesting, but it has nothing to do with the dating of Mahabharata and astronomy evidence, okay? That actually, when you do it, it becomes a kind of problem, and we are going to look at it. So let's talk about the Mahabharata. Now, when you want to find this out, what do? Vernier caliper, everyone uses vernier caliper. Okay, so what do? We take approximate reading. Sometimes that may be sufficient. But then if you want to precise and finer, then you look at the vernier, the second reading, and then do math calculation, add the error, something like this. We are looking for some crucial evidence, accuracy, not so much the precision, which tells me I should look for the reading into this area. I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I met with few students from here. Are they here, some of you? No. Okay, good, for some of you. So I'm going to use that same story there, okay? Now don't give the answer, don't blurt out the answer. They did not know yesterday. I'm going to make a statement for the benefit of all of you, and you have to tell me whether you think it's true or false. Everyone has heard the name Lokmanya Tilak? Yes. Swatantra Veer Savarkar, Mahatma Gandhi. Okay. I'm going to make a statement. Swatantra Veer Savarkar, Mahatma Gandhi, Lokmanya Tilak, they came together in Pune, in Maharashtra, in 1923, and they discussed about how to let British go and how to get the Swatantra, the freedom, okay? Lokmanya Tilak used to eat the betel nut, the rotha supari, so he distributed that to Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi initially hesitated, but then he said, sure, I will try. Okay, they had a long discussion. After that, they had a tea and then they left. Everyone heard what I said? Okay. How many of you think this is a true statement or this is possible? This is possible, raise your hand. Okay, very good. How many of you think this is impossible? Please raise your hand. Okay, the impossible is the correct answer. Can somebody tell me why impossible? अलग-अलग time में हुए ना, but they were contemporary times. They had an overlapping time, all three of them. So, but you know the answer. Anyone else? Ideology differences, very good. Somebody else? He said they were not overlapping times. Ideology differences, how are they going to get together? Gandhi ji kya? Supari nahi khate, very good. Anyone else? Thank you. Earlier meaning when? 1920. The reason this statement is false is because Tilak passed away in 1920. Okay? And now to this small control group that I had yesterday, I had possibly given multiple answers that people give. Did you hear those answers here? Very, very consistent, okay? So for example, thank you for participating. He said the ideal thing, somebody said, I don't Gandhi would retire. Well, that may be, that may not be true. None of this matters. The crucial piece of evidence is, I said 1923 they came together and Lokmanya Tilak was gone in 1920. Everyone follows what I'm saying? So just based on that information, I don't want to know about the battle nut. I don't want to know about their ideologies. Simply on 1920, it's simply not possible in 1923. Can you stay with this for next 15 minutes? That's the kind of evidence we are looking for, okay? There was one verse that I came across, it's now famous as AV observation, Arundhati Vasishta observation. Our good friend recited the first verse of Bhagavad Gita, Dharmakshetre, Kurukshetre, Samaveta, Yudsava. For most part, it is Anushtup Chanda, entire Mahabharata. This one comes at the beginning of Bhishma Parva. And the way I came across this verse, because I had just too much time on my hand when I had finished my master's thesis in Canada, and there is some time that you have nothing to do practically until the defense. So I went to a library, just out of curiosity, I wanted to, where exactly is Bhagavad Gita in Mahabharata? So I pulled the Bhishma Parva and started reading the first chapter. Now the Bhagavad Gita begins in the 23rd chapter, just as the answer. But I didn't go that far, because when I started reading the first adhyaya and the second adhyaya, I was truly surprised. I didn't know this. This is 1994 or so. Many of you were not born. Okay, then. So what I say, Achaisha Vishta Rajas Trailokya Sadhu Sammata Arundhaya Pesha Vasishta Prushtata Kruta. Just a day before the Mahabharata war, in that narration of Mahabharata, Vyasa is telling Dhritarashtra many things, but among those many things, one thing he says, look, the sky, that Arundhati, that star Arundhati is walking ahead of star Vasishta. We'll assume you have astronomy. Any astronomy folks here? Astronomy, astrophysics? No? Okay, I can bluff. Everyone knows how many of you have seen the North Pole star in the sky? Okay, what is the latitude of Kanpur? Anyone knows? 23. Okay, so those of 26. Those of you who don't know how to identify the North Pole star, what you have to do is, you at night, you face the north direction, and you kind of take your hand like this. What is 26, you said? And you go through the 26-degree angle. From the horizon, you go 26-degree angle. Keep on focusing there, see if you can see a star. If you can't say it, just say, hi Hitler. Okay? When you start seeing a star there, okay, that is the pole star. If you keep on seeing it, what you'll see, all other stars kind of go in anti-clockwise around that, but that star doesn't move. In our times, that star is a Polaris, but even the pole star changes, and we're going to talk about this, okay? So this Arundhati Vasishta, everyone knows Saptarshi, like 7 stars. So there is that rectangle, and then there is a tail, like a 3 stars. The tail 3 stars, the middle star is a Vasishta. Next to that, there is a small star, that is Arundhati, and Vyasa is talking about those. Now, what is the big deal about this observation? The big deal is that if you look at it today, it is the Vasishta which is walking ahead. Walking ahead in the sense, they come in the northeast, clockwise, and go down in the northwest. You follow? Around the pole star. But here, if you look at them, it is Vasishta ahead and Arundhati behind. That's what is the story today. If you go back 2,000 years ago, same thing. 4,000 years ago, same thing. 6,000 years ago, same thing. But Vyasa is saying exactly opposite. Arundhati is ahead. So that's what I started. I said, this is something simple. And in our engineering confidence, 1994, I said, well, maybe it will take me a couple of weeks or weekends. Then it took me 15 years from 1994 to 2009 to figure out what the hell is going on here with Arundhati Vasishta. But when I finally figured this out, the beauty that came out is this. Actually, in astronomy speak, it gave a time that between 11,000, this is the old numbers, 11,091 BC to 4508 BC. It is that precise. This is the only time in between, about 6,000 years ago, anyone on the earth, northern hemisphere, looking at Arundhati Vasishta, they would have seen Arundhati walking ahead, Vasishta walking behind. Everyone follows what I'm saying? Okay. Now, if you have a doubt about this, this is the kind of doubt you need. I'm going to show you. 10 years after, I did this in 2009, 10 years after, one Siddhartha Chabra of Indian origin, but in America. He said, let me see if whatever this Nilesh is saying, is he bluffing or is he telling the truth? So he actually pulled the latest astronomy data from the Hubble telescopes, the Jet Propulsion Lab and so on. And he did the manual calculation, and what he came up with is exactly identical conclusion, but now with a better, more precise data, the interval shrunk. From 6,000, it went down to 5,000 years. Now help me, that triangle. So it says Arundhati went ahead of Vasishtha. Our actual testing shows that it happened only between these years. Vyasa is saying this is happening at the time of Mahabharata War. What does that tell you about the timing of Mahabharata War? Just based on this one observation. That it happened somewhere in between. Everyone follows? Okay. Now you say, but that's just a one observation and it's not a specific year. Fortunately, Mahabharata text has close to 300 such astronomy descriptions. This is about this star. There are about planets, there are about eclipses, and on and chronological things. The beauty is when this one was done and when started, so this took me 15 years. The additional 299 plus observation took me 6 months. How many of you play with a jigsaw puzzle or crossword puzzle? Anyone? Crossword? So when you start, looks like, oh, this one seems to be a tougher one. But once you get few words right, then everything starts falling in place. Is it not? That's your experience, something like that, okay? So that's the year I found out 5561 BCE. But how did I do this? There is another set of evidence in the Mahabharata, about 100 observations, okay? So total of 300, I used one. Now I'm going to use additional 100 observations related to Bhishma, Bhishma Nirvana. Everyone knows the name Bhishma? He fell in the battle on the 10th day of the war. War was for 18 days. Then he was on the Sharashaya waiting for the day of winter solstice. We call it Uttarayan, okay? Not 14 January, 21st December, the astronomy Uttarayan, okay? Let's not fight on that, maybe question answer. So how long he was there? Mahabharata tells he was there definitely for more than 95 days. Anyone knows which lunar month Mahabharata War happened? Or another way is a Gita Jayanti. Which lunar month the Gita Jayanti occurs? Everyone will say in December. No, but not the Gregorian. It's a Margashirsha. Everyone is familiar with the lunar month Margashirsha. Chaitra, Vaishak, Jeshta, Ashad, Margashirsha. So right now if you see Margashirsha comes in December, around 21st of December. But when Bhishma fell down, it was Margashirsha and he was on the bed of arrows for 95 days and he fell on the 10th day. So there are like 105 days between the first day of the Mahabharata war and winter solstice. So about 4 months time period. Okay, Astronomy 101. Every 2000 years the lunar month shifts with respect to season by 1 month. So there is a shift of about 4 months. Please help me do the math. How many years ago Mahabharata war happened? There is a shift of 4 months. 1 month shift takes about 2000 years. About 8000 years ago. That's another way, and actually mathematically you can find out the exact years. 5125, 6722. So this one fits within that Arundhati Vasishtha. So that was 6000 years. Now I have a 1500 years. So I am narrowing it down, where to look for. You know the story of a drunkard who has lost his coin, and then he is looking, searching for it, and a police. No, you haven't heard? No, that's good. Policeman comes and says, "What are you searching for?" He says, "The coin that I lost." He says, "Where did you lose it?" He said, "About a kilometer away." So he says, "Why are you searching here?" "Because the light is better." Okay. So that's the wrong way to do it. This is the right way to do it, right? Look for it where you can actually find it. And so finally, that also gives the interval. And how do I get the exact year? I get it from 50 plus descriptions of all the planetary positions. Okay. If I have to explain this, I can explain it. Actually, I have done it in certain universities or even other private settings. I did it like 3 sessions in Mumbai, in the last one, different area. It just went for like 5 hours, like this discussion, and still people were more confused possibly. But these are the retrograde motion. Everyone understands what retrograde motion is? Okay, the planet becomes steady and becomes brighter. Okay, various motions. I'll just give you some idea. There are 50 plus different descriptions. Just like I read Arundhati Vasishtha, this is how they will come. Tell me, pick a planet. Venus. So Mahabharata says the position of Venus at the time of Mahabharata war. Shukra is a Venus. Shukram proshtapade purve samaruya vishampate uttare tu parikramya sahita pratyudikshite. All of us are Sanskrit experts. Trust yourself. Shukram, Shukra. Proshtapade purve. Anyone knows 27 nakshatras? Everyone knows there are 27 nakshatras? Ashwini, Bharani, Kritika, Rohini. Okay? On and on. Just like we should know the periodic table, if you want to do astronomy, you have to know these nakshatras. Not only just the names, you should know how they look in the sky. What part? Ashwini, Bharani, Kritika, Rohini, Mrugashirsha, Ardra, Punarvasu, Pushya, Aslesha, Magha, Purva, Shada, Uttara, Shada. On and on. I can do 27. The point is just to impress you. Okay? But so Shukram Proshtapade Purve is a Purva Bhadrapada. Shukram Proshtapade Purve Samaruya Vishampate. Shukra came near Purva Bhadrapada. Samaruya, Aruya, like Arud Hona, on a horse pe Arud Hona, seat pe Arud Hona. Samaruya Vishampate, shining. Shukra came near Purva Bhadrapada and started shining. Then what did it do? Uttaretu Parikramya, by turning to the north. Uttaretu Parikramya. Everyone knows Parikrama? In the mandir, Uttaretu Parikramya Sahita Pratyudikshite. That's one observation. On the 18th day of the war, there was a conjunction, Yuti. We call it Yuti. The three planets were seen together. Bhrugu Suno Dharaputro Shashi Jeno Samanvito Charamam Pandu Putranam Purastat Sarvabhubhujam. Bhrugu Suno, Shukra. That is a different name of Dharaputro, that is Mars. Okay? Bhruguputro Dharaputro Shashi Jaina, son of Shashi. We talked about the English and etymology. Okay, Bhrugu Suno, son of Bhrugu. Suna, what is the word for son? Bhrugu Suno. Dharaputro, that's fine, paternal. We talk about the word paternal. Shashi Jaina. Do you know what that means? Son of Shashi. What is that Jaina? Of genetics. Bhrugu Suno Dharaputro Shashi Jaina Samanvito Charamam Pandu Putranam Purastat Sarvabhubhujam. Pick another planet. Somebody else. Saturn. Lots of references. Now what is the beauty about Saturn? Saturn doesn't move a lot in a given time. Okay? Saturn takes about 30 years to go through the whole round of the sky. 27 nakshatra. Which means what? In a given 1 year, Saturn is essentially going to be at 1 nakshatra, maybe plus minus 1 nakshatra, plus minus 2 nakshatra with a retrograde and so on. Yeah? You see Saturn's reference is like this. Bhagam nakshatra akramya surya putrena pidhyate. Surya putra is a name of a Shani. Bhagam nakshatra akramya. Akramya means coming close. That's from there the word comes akraman. Akramya meaning coming close. Bhagam nakshatra akramya Surya putrena pidate. Surya putra came near Bhaga nakshatra and started giving pida, afflicting it. To who? Bhaga nakshatra. What is a Bhaga nakshatra? Again, the nakshatra basics 101, that is Purva Falguni, Uttara Falguni. But that's not the one reference. Remember, this is a jigsaw puzzle or a crossword puzzle. What are other references? Just a demonstration. That same Saturn is explained in the connection with a Jupiter. Okay? Samvatsara, everyone understands what that? For a year. Samvatsara sthayinancho, become fixed. Samvatsara sthayinancho graho prajvalito ubho. They became bright. Vishakhayo samipasto bruhaspati shanaischaro. In the vicinity of nakshatra Vishakha, Bruhaspati, which means Jupiter and Saturn, Shanaischaro, were there together. Okay? And I can just go on and Prajapatyam cha nakshatra graha tikshna mahadyuti Shanaischara pideti pidayan pranikodikam Magaswangarako vakra shravane cha Bruhaspati. Just on and on. Tell me when you are impressed and I will stop saying the Sanskrit verses. There are 50 such references. When you put that together as a jigsaw puzzle, they are going to take you to 5561 BC and know the year. Okay? So that's done with Mahabharata. Ramayana, now you know the pattern. Look for a crucial evidence and then look for something precise. Like remember the vernier caliper. First the approximate, then the precise one. Okay. How are we doing on time? How long I blabbered so far? 1 hour? I finished, I used, yeah, I have, how many more minutes I have? 10? 10, 15 is fine, okay. And then I want to leave some time for question answer, okay. So here there are 6 references from Ramayana. We have talked about the pole star. Everything is going to be useful. Okay, where do we start? Let's start here. Here, Chitra. Everyone is familiar with Ram Navami, the celebration of Bhagwan, birth of Bhagwan Ram. Chaitra Shukla Navami. Do you know what day is it going to be this year? Anyone? 17th April. Okay, 17th April, which is what? Second part of Vasanta Rutu, Vasanta season. There are 6 seasons in the Indian context. Okay, Vasanta, Grishma, Varsha, Sharad, Hemanta, Shishira, and the cycle repeats. Many people think, as a misunderstanding, that when Ram was born, it was also Vasanta Rutu. That's not correct. Actually, how does the Vasanta Rutu feel? It's very hot, tiring right now. Maybe because of the change of weather or something. Early part may be pleasant. But if you look at the descriptions on the Ramayana, when Ram is born or when Ram is going to be coronated and then he ends up going to Vanvas, these are very pleasant and beautiful descriptions of Chaitra. Chaitram Sri Manayam Masa Punya Pushpita Kanana. All the forest, now think of Ayodhya, not far from here. The whole forest are blooming with flowers. Okay? Now you say Vasanta Rutu also can do that. The problem is Ramayana did not happen now. Ramayana did not happen even 2000 years ago. So if you want to find out, match a season which also matches with Chaitram Sri Manayam Masa Punya Pushpita Kanana, you have to go backwards. That's how astronomy goes, So that's a what? Shishira Rutu, before that Hemanta Rutu. At least you have to go to Sharad Rutu at a minimum. That's going back about 14,000 years. Remember, I said 2000 years to shift of 1 month with respect to the thing. So that's one reference. Then Ram Lakshman were in Maharashtra for 2 years. They started in UP, but they were in Maharashtra. Everyone knows, near Nashik, Panchavati. Okay? So there, when the Hemanta Rutu comes, meaning in our times, November, December, Lakshman is describing the whole 24-hour cycle. And it was much colder times, those times. Okay? We are talking about 14,000 years ago. I'm going to come to that. Much colder times. And he's saying the situation before the sunrise, after sunrise, morning, noon, afternoon, and the sunset. When he describes the sunset, Lakshman says this to Ram and Sita. Nivrutta Akasha Shayana Pushyanita Himaruna. The sun of the Hemanta Rutu is setting on a nakshatra Pushya. If you look at it today in November, December, sun sets on nakshatra Mula, Purvashada, Uttarashada, somewhere there. How many of you are familiar, at least the word, precession of the Earth's axis or precession of the equinoxes, a 26,000 year cycle? If you use that, it tells you have to go back 14,000 years ago for Lakshmana's statement to be true during the Hemanta season, sun setting on Pushya. You can go around this. Then Vanara parties start going searching for Sita. They start at the end of Sharad, they go through the Shishira Rutu, Hemanta Rutu, and now spring comes. Now anyone remembers how long the duration Sugriva has given? 1 month. Sugriva says, come back in 1 month. Now they have gone through multiple months. Everyone is frustrated. The month has passed away, they are saying. And Angad is now frustrated. He says, I'm not going back to Kishkinda. Sugriva will kill me. He just says, I'm going to sit here, do fast like Gandhiji. That's what actually he says. I'm not going anywhere. Okay? He says there, Vayam Ashvayuje Masi Kala Sankhya Vyavasita Prastita Sopi Chatita Kimatah Karyam Uttaram. We started at the end of Sharad. Think of this as a September, October. They have gone through November, December, January, February, March, April, somewhere they are there. He says that Vasanta Rutu has come and even the month of Ashwin is going away. The point is, today it's exactly opposite. Chaitra comes in a Vasanta, Ashwin comes in the Sharad. At the time of Mahabharata War, it's opposite. Chaitra is coming in Sharad, Ashwin is coming in Vasanta. You follow? The total cycle is of 26,000 years. Approximately it has gone opposite. How many years you need? Half of that, about 13,000 years. That's what he's telling. Lastly, quickly, the pole stars. Today our pole star, what do we call? What is the name of a pole star? Polaris. Dhruva Tara, yeah, Dhruva is like a pole star in Sanskrit, right? But the name is Polaris. The pole star of Ramayana times is not Polaris. Again, do you know why? Because of the precession of the Earth's axis. Okay? Where the Earth's axis is pointing, that also changes and it makes a circle of 26,000 years. Wherever it is pointing, if there is a bright star next to it, we call it a pole star of that time. What is the pole star of Ramayana times? It is given at the top. See, this is that cycle. This is the circle of this precession of the equinoxes. This is that point of NCP or SCP in the southern hemisphere. This is Agastya, Canopus, and here this is Abhijit, Brahmarashi or Vega, and the NCP point is close to it. So that time, this is the pole star. And how it is described? Brahmarashir Vishuddhasya Shuddhasya Paramarshya Archishmanta Prakashante Dhruvam Sarve Pradakshinam. The Saptarshis are going around the bright pole star named Brahmarashi. That is that Brahmarashi. Again, we need some background knowledge. The deity of Abhijit Nakshatra is a Brahma. That's why it is called Brahmarashi. Okay, that pole star. Interestingly, at that time, this Agastya star has also become a pole star in the south. And you can see that in the, again, Ramayana. When the southern party is going, Sugriva says, go all the way to the end of the southern tip of India, whatever the tip was at that time, because sea levels were down by 120 meters. So maybe more land. He says, then you have to climb the Mahendra mountain. Anyone from Tamil Nadu, Kerala? You know where the Mahendra mountain is, very good, okay? Just west of Kanyakumari and further north. He says you have to climb the Mahendra mountain and only then you can see the Agastya star. Please pay attention. Today you can see Agastya star from Delhi. But at the time of Ramayana, you can't see, forget Delhi, forget Mumbai, forget Bengaluru. You have to go all the way to the Mahendra Parvat. Not only that, you have to climb the mountain before you can see it. Why? Because it has become a pole star. You kind of combine this together, think of this as a jigsaw puzzle. It takes you to about 14,000 years. And now how do you find the exact year? This is created by me in less than 2 minutes using equivalent of a ChatGPT in Microsoft, whatever the function is. I said, Lakshman showing comet to Bhagwan Ram. You have played with the ChatGPT and other stuff, right? The pictures, like in 2 minutes, whatever showed up, I just said, okay, let me use that. Okay, all the artists are being challenged by this. Okay, so here Lakshman is showing a comet. Nairuttam Nairutanam cha nakshatram abhipidyate moolam mulavata spashtam blah 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 blah. Bottom line is there was a planet that was afflicting Mula Nakshatra. Have you heard of the problem of child labor in the world? Okay, so when this was there, essentially it was a 14,000 years plus minus like 3,000 years. So there was a time period of 6,000 years. And I have to find, there are 200 plus comets, known comets. I have to find that one comet that comes and becomes bright near Mula Nakshatra in that 6,000 years. My daughter was 6-year-old at that time. So I put her in front of the astronomy software. I activated all the 200 comets and said, Arya, just keep looking. I fix the Mula Nakshatra, that's what we need. Just keep on looking. When the bright nakshatra, bright comet comes near Mula Nakshatra, you stop the computer, call daddy. Okay? That's a child labor, 6-year-old. So that's one comes. I mean, you can verify this or any astronomy software, sophisticated astronomy software, it should have the comets. That comes around that time. So that's the year of the Ram Ravan Yuddha. And then you use the chronology evidence, astronomy evidence. Ramayana has 600 plus. If Mahabharata has 300, Ramayana has 600 plus. That's how it was done. It's a story told in a very fast way. What happens next? I mean, we are going to stop here. That's for tomorrow. But, have you heard the saying, no good work goes unpunished? No? Right? So what happens? If you are successful, they say, that's what they do. Now I did Ramayana, Mahabharata, so Rama's birth date, Krishna's birth date. They say, Nilesh ji, now please find out the birth date of Matsya Avatar. Okay? That's what happens, right? No, so what happens is you find something. Have you heard of this? Have you seen this tetradic schema of a scientific method? This is a problem one. To solve this, you came up with a tentative theory. Okay, then you did the experiments. Why do you do experiments? To eliminate the error. Whatever is the prediction and whatever is the actual, that's error elimination. If you are successful, check marks, you get the reward. But now actually a successful theory leads to many newer problems of higher complexity. If you want to understand the story of modern science, that's what it is. Ptolemy to Copernicus, Copernicus to Tycho Brahe, to Galileo, to Kepler, to Newton, right? Lagrange, Maxwell, Faraday, Newton, Einstein. Basically, that's the story. They just build on the previous successes. Okay, that's what we are going to see. That's what you see. Problem one, you propose a tentative theory. It has to be crisp. It has to be universal, generic. Yesterday, someone gave a very good answer. Generic has to be generic. error elimination, that has to be empirical, logical, objective, consistent, and the newer problem of higher complexity. And the cycle repeats, but in a different way, in a better way, okay? Then you take that problem too, if that's interesting, and you go through this cycle. That's what we are going to do today, sorry, tomorrow. But let's say Arundhati is walking ahead of Vasishtha. I was successful, I mean, Chabra helped me make it more precise. It can lead to many problems. Lead meaning in an interesting way. So he says, oh, does this mean Vyasa knew of the times when Vasishtha was ahead of Arundhati? Right? I mean, if you know the typical story, you know, if dog bites the man, it may not be a news, but if a man bites the dog, it can be a news, something like this. Oh, so did Vyasa knew of a times when Arundhati was behind? Okay, that means people are observing for a long time. The maximum separation is 8 arc minutes. How did Vyasa observe? Did he have telescopes? Okay, those are the questions. Now, none of those questions basically comes back and says, therefore, this is not true. Are you following me? That's how science goes. This is a fact. That's not even in the question. But now these are the interesting questions that get raised. If you find them interesting, you work on them. Okay? Same thing with the Bhishma. Like, how could Bhishma survive for 95 days? Why did he have to survive until the day of winter solstice? That may be a different issue, like may go into another science and so on. But you may have a question like, how old is Rigveda? How are the upper limits of the timing of Ramayana? How do we eliminate that million years? Typical question, so far nobody asked, and I will leave that, I will not say that question. Let's see if that question comes. Quickly, the Rigveda, astronomy didn't help me there, but what helped me is a Saraswati. In Rigveda, Saraswati is described as the grandest of the grand river. Now it doesn't even exist. Nadi Itame, Ambi Itame, Devi Itame, Saraswati. If you look at this, these are all peer-reviewed papers, by the way. One paper actually comes from IIT Kanpur. You know Ajit Singh, Professor Rajiv Sinha, Earth Sciences, okay? 2017 paper, okay? And then this is James Blinkhorn, 2020 paper from Cambridge, okay? In Bikaner, at quarry, they found basically the big river presence going back to 172,000 years. Something changes from there to about 70,000 years, and the river shifts. Then between 50,000, 70 to 50,000 is okay. Between 50 and 40,000, Yamuna separates from Saraswati and starts meeting Ganga. In Ramayana, there are many descriptions of Yamuna and Ganga together. Everyone remembers when they crossed and everything. What does that tell you about the upper limit on the timing of Ramayana? This evidence says Yamuna separated from Saraswati only after 50,000, I mean only in the last 50,000 years. Ramayana talks of Yamuna and Ganga together. What does that tell you? And Ramayana talks of together. Ramayana can only happen based on that evidence in the last 50,000 years. Everyone with me? Because if you go before, you cannot have a description of Yamuna meeting Ganga. Something is wrong, right? Okay, I'm almost done. Then something interesting happens 15,000 years ago. This is from Professor Rajiv Sinha's paper, Nature Communications, okay? Satluj also stopped feeding its water to Saraswati. It turned sharp west, Ropar in Punjab if you go, and went towards Ravi and then eventually to Sindhu, okay? Interestingly, Valmiki Ramayana has a description of river Shatudri flowing in the westward direction. How's that? That also puts another upper limit on the timing of Ramayana. You follow what I'm saying? Ramayana is saying Shatudri is that river with a big patra, okay, flowing in the west direction. Because until then we have evidence. Again, go back to Professor Rajiv Sinha's paper. There is evidence of river Satluj coming south straight and feeding its water to Saraswati. Very broad, 22-kilometer wide patra. Okay, that's the evidence. And if you go to the last mandala of Rigveda, again, there is a reference to Saraswati, which is not here, but look at that sequence. Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati, Shatudri, Soma. There are 19 rivers mentioned, and they start from the east, go all the way to Afghanistan. Saraswati is mentioned, which doesn't exist, okay? But something else interesting, we'll talk more tomorrow if we get time. This Nadi Sukta, which is in Rigveda, actually captures the historical reality. Rigveda is not about history, but just as a coincidence, it captures the history. What is that history? The shift from Saraswati as a grand river to now Sindhu as a grand river. Can you tell now why Sindhu became a grand river? Because of Satluj. Now it's not feeding the waters to Saraswati. but is feeding the waters to Sindhu. Okay, so that actually that transition is there in Rigveda. Again, this is a summary. Anyone interested, you can read my books and few other books. Anyone has a sleeping problem, they work very well. The bedtime you start reading. These days people read less. Okay, your homework is not over. I have 1,000+ talks on the YouTube. So again, they work very well for sleeping problems. You know, bedtime you start YouTube, type Nilesh Oak, whatever the talk comes. How many of you have listened to my talks before? Okay, you can check with them. They will agree that they work very well. Okay, all right. And quick summary for today. We will take it from here tomorrow. Bharatiya civilization has deep antiquity that pushes the limits of available evidence. I'm going to show that tomorrow, by the way, how it pushes the limits. Limits of available science and limits of available ancient narratives. Key sheet anchors, we talked about 7,000, more than 7,000, more than 14,000, more than 21,000. Enormous evidence, that's what I'm going to talk tomorrow. And therefore opportunity exists. I explored it, but that's just scratching the surface. There is much more, okay? That allows us to explore ancient agriculture, where it began, how it was done. Phytoliths, anyone works into that, like, you know, the grain gets fossilized, you know, with the silicates on the top. You can tell whether it is domestic or whether it is a wild grain, how science is advanced. Navigation, astronomy, mathematics, domestication of animals, philosophy, science and technology. We'll talk tomorrow about that. I don't know if I went over time. Thank you very much. If we have a time, we'll do question and answers. Please wait for the speaker or microphone, you know, before you ask the question.
Hello. So is it audible from here?
Yeah. Hello, hello.
Yes, I can hear you. Hold it closer, please.
I think it is not coming. The sound is not coming.
It's coming from front. It's coming. That's fine. That's fine. You can say it from there.
Actually, first of all, it's a very nice talk. I have some confusion. First of all, that the thing you say that must be developed from a civilization. That all the things that astronomy must be developed from the civilization. So if your say it is true, then what can we assume that what is our oldest civilization? Because Harappan civilization has come in 3300 BCE. So you are saying that 13,000 BCE. So before that, I mean, the first civilization we have found, one of the oldest is the Harappan civilization. So we have to believe there is another civilization that is much more educated or much more advanced civilization was present at that time. After that, that astronomical thing can be happened. Right. So what is your say on this?
Okay, so if you have to great point. If you have to formulate that as a question, like, you know, if you have to ask that as a so what, why, how, where, how would you formulate that question? I understood what you said. So what would you say the question? Like, how old is a civilization, I think? Is that the question? Okay, great. So he's just to recap what he said. So if all the sophistication is happening, say Ramayana times 14,000 years ago, suddenly the nakshatras didn't come out of nowhere, okay, ability to measure their things and so on. So civilization must be older. It could be other civilization if you are borrowing the technology and science and something like this. So it could be the same civilization, how old it is, or if it is borrowed from another civilization, how old is that civilization, which one is that civilization, or there are many people who believe maybe the aliens came, and you might have heard those theories also. Aliens might have come, that's not my theory, okay, I don't have evidence for it, okay, I don't have evidence. If somebody has, I'm very open to hear that. So tomorrow, and if you come, sir, tomorrow we'll talk about how far very comfortably we can talk about our civilization, going back to 75,000 years, that's what I'm going to show you. How many of you have heard of Toba explosion, T-O-B-A, that happened in Sumatra, the Indonesia island Sumatra, okay? Now, how sophisticated they were, we don't know, but let me make a comment. So 70 to 75,000 years ago, there was a huge explosion, like the volcanic eruption that came out, and the entire India, not even the India we call today, but a huge area like the Middle East and many of the areas to the east of India, they were all covered with a thick layer of ash. It was, you can go on Google and just do Toba explosion, 72,000 BC. India was covered. Now, if you go to Jwalapuram in Andhra Pradesh, what you find is a thick layer of ash. Interestingly, below that you find stone tools, and above that also you find stone tools, no tools of other kinds. Now, which means somebody was there before, and they also survived. Now, something interesting, you say stone tools, immediately what we have been taught, stone tools meaning very backward. I will ask every one of you afterwards when you get a chance, some of you might have seen it, go to YouTube and type Zoe tribe, Z-O-E, it's in Amazon, okay? To this day, until like 50 years ago or so, they were living without any connection with rest of the humanity. And you can still see that, okay? All they use is whatever is available in the nature, okay? So for example, cutting the trees, they will use the rat teeth and put it to the axe and do it, okay? Valkala, everyone knows the word Valkala that Ram and Sita were wearing when they went to Vanvas. Actually, you can see how the Valkalas are made, you know, how they take out the external, you know, what you call the outside skin of the tree, and how they turn that into clothes and so on. How they use the pumpkins and take the inside stuff out and use that as a pots and pans, and living a very happy life with the old people taken care in a very nice way. My point is, from a technology that we have a certain concept, it may look like very rudimentary, but they can have a very sophisticated life. So I'm saying, now what evidence we have, we'll talk about that evidence. So in the Indian context, we can go up to 75,000 years and actually possibly more. Keep in mind, as we go back in the past, the amount of evidence available just directionally gets less and less. That's clear, because things go out. So we don't have to even go outside. That's not to say there were no influences from outside. So outside, inside, let me say this. I research in the area going back from 2000 BC to 75,000 BC. Okay, and I say once you go beyond 2000 BC, 4,000 years, even when we look at the whole world, there is no us versus them in the sense of nationalities and things like that. There are people, if you look at the genetic diagrams in Google, what do you see? You see an input coming from Africa, that is the current prevailing theory, even that is being challenged as a multiple sources of human development and so on. But let's go with the current theory of Africa, about 100,000 years ago. And after that, India is a cooking pot, okay? Literally, you know, for the humans, but also for the cuisine. And from there it has gone out. Tomorrow I will show you some interesting evidence for a domestic mouse and cows and whatnot, out of India migrations, not just human beings, mouse and cows. And I'll tell you the years, how far back the domestic mouse is taking a vacation in France. Okay, next. Yes. So his question is, where is Ravana's Lanka? Right? We don't have to go to Madagascar, because 00 would be just east of Maldives, just east of Maldives, okay? And right now there is a deep ocean there. Actually, there is a geological anomaly. Anyone from geology area here? You can actually do Google and just see the geological anomaly. The earth crust below the ocean there is extremely thin, and people are not sure exactly what happened there or so on. But Ravana's Lanka is just not there. Sri Lanka name came in 1972, in case you did not know, okay? Any other questions? Yeah, and I'll come back to you. Yes. What do you think of it? So, lot of us, I mean, before possibly listening to me, and there are other people, actually, surprise, 140 years ago, there were enough number of researchers, 140 years ago. If you read Lokmanya Tilak's Orion, you will see there were few researchers who were very comfortable saying Mahabharata happened 5000 BC, approximate time. Somewhere then it was lost, possibly with the Lokmanya Tilak, who put it around 1400 BC, and will not go into that. But his question is, if before listening to me or before listening to some of you, somebody would have asked you, when did Kali Yuga began? Or when did Mahabharata War happen? Mahabharata happened. What do you think you would have seen, you would have said, or what you have heard? 5,000 years ago? Yes? Okay. If you haven't even heard that, then we have a bigger problem. Okay? Because I can take both positions and fight with myself, you know, somebody has to say. So that's a great question. So what happens in 3000 BC? Great. I talked about the 300 astronomy evidences. There is not even out of these 300 astronomy pieces of evidence in Mahabharata, not even one that individually can take you to 3000 BC, or any of these, whichever way you want to combine and say, look, this takes me to 3000 BC. Forget 3000 BC. There is not even a single piece of evidence or a group of evidence out of these 300 that will take you to 3000 BC plus minus 1000 years. Meaning there is not even a single piece of evidence, astronomy evidence in the Mahabharata text, and a geology evidence, by the way, that I am going to show you tomorrow, that will take you anywhere between 3000 BC plus minus 1000. Nothing between 2000 BC and 4000 BC. So that is the answer to that. Yeah, sorry, I'll take that. And what is it? Well, okay, so sorry, I'll just take that question. They say that because just like we in the old times, or even, you know, we used to change the battery and recalibrate the clock. We had to do that, right? Something like this. Or in our labs, we have to recalibrate our instruments. Similarly, because Indian astronomy tradition is very old, I'll just give you a number and I'll show you the evidence tomorrow, about going back to at least 40,000 years. 40,000, don't confuse 4,000, 14,000, no, 40,000, okay? So because of that, periodically it needs to be recalibrated, because astronomy constants, even though they are constants, even they change over a long period of time. So there was a certain instance, and we can talk tomorrow, that happened around 3000 BC. So they felt like, let's recalibrate the equipment. And so there is an astronomy reason why they did it around 3000 BC. Therefore the Panchanga, you know, Yugabda and others, they talk about that year. Somebody, and I know who that somebody is, somewhere later on said, maybe that's a Kali Yuga. So somebody speculates, like, you know how the research paper it happens, now maybe not in the engineering, but in anthropology and all that happens. Some person says, it appears that it could be this. The next person who refers to this paper, he says, so and so professor says it happened that way. Okay, so someone's speculation becomes evidence for the next paper and something. So this happened in this. So one person, Bhaskaracharya, in 6th century. But we'll talk about Aryabhatta. Aryabhatta actually, so what professor is saying is, Aryabhatta also refers to Kali Yuga, you are saying, right? Okay, let me just simply say the entire Aryabhatiya has no word Kali in it. How's that? Yuga is there, but no word Kali. But people, you know, see, if you want to see something, you will say it. Okay, so that has happened. So that is the answer. So there was something astronomy epoch. They used that to start refresh the calendar. That got confused in 6th century with maybe that's a Kali Yuga. That's what Bhaskaracharya says. There is a Sanskrit verse for that. And then people say, Bhaskaracharya says it. Well, that happens, right? Yeah. Just let me, yeah. Yeah, it was there. Imam cha Gange cha. Yeah. The Bhagirathi still exists. If you go to Devaprayag, right? Alakananda, Bhagirathi are coming. As you go back, tributaries, right? You see, you follow Ganga upward. When they split into two, now you have to decide which one is Ganga. Yes. Okay, I understand your question. Okay, no, good question. Okay, yes, I get your question. So he's saying Rama, Bhagirath is long before Rama. Okay, still your question is not very polished, but I will still take it. Okay, Bhagirath is long before Rama. So now Bhagirath brought Ganga. Okay, so now that it possibly became Ganga, until then there was no Ganga. How can the Ganga come in Rigveda? Right? Okay, the Nadi Sukta, that 10.75, before it's called Janavi also, because of the king Janu and so on. You know, it will be a long subject. Janavi is how it is called in Rigveda. But the 10.75, the sukta that I showed you is, remember something I said, it's actually capturing a transition, a geological, hydrological transition, morphodynamics of rivers transition in Rigveda, from Saraswati to be the grandest river, now Sindhu to be the grandest river. So it is relatively recent. It is from the Mahabharata times. Everyone knows, I mean, have you heard at least in a verbal sense that Vyasa reorganized the Vedas? Okay? If you have not heard, that is there in the Mahabharata. So he is using some new, you hear the name Shantanu and Devapi in Rigveda. You hear Ram in Rigveda. Pruthu, Vena and Ram, these are all Ikshvaku kings. Because these are some of the suktas selected by Vyasadeva into the Shakala Samhita, that is the Samhita we are left with about 7,500 years ago. That's why the Ganga is there. Okay, who do we go next?
There's a theory that the Vedas are written over multiple books by multiple authors. So, do we see any form of evolution, this form of evolution in the Vedas, that this part shows explicitly that this was written much years older than the other parts of the Vedas?
Okay, so the question is, all the suktas, they have a rishis or the rishi families and so on, different meters and so on. So is there like some way to chronologize them? Okay, not in an exact fashion, because remember Vyasa has reshuffled the cards and rearranged them, but a directional sense, yes. So there are 10 mandalas in Rigveda. Okay, ready with your smartphone? This is the sequence: 6, 3, 7. Okay, 4, 2, 5, 8, 9, done. And the 1 is basically the sukta, the one mandala has sukta from the oldest times and the youngest time. This is a work of Shrikant Talagiri. How many of you have heard the name Shrikant Talagiri? Okay. Now I'm not saying it's a perfect work, but that is the best that is available. The best approximation to the truth is 6, 3, 7, 4, 2, 5, 8, 9, and the 1 is like this. Shrikant Talagiri ji says, he has done the research, I talk more about his work than he does. That's the answer. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, sir. So within the Vedic framework, what are the consequences of this dating? So, for instance, that means if Kali Yuga started these many years earlier, then what are the consequences of that?
Okay. We have to separate when Kali Yuga began from this Rigveda or anything. You know, it has nothing to do with it. In fact, there are many types of yuga. Okay, there are. Have you heard the name Arun Upadhyay from Bhubaneswar, Cuttack? Okay, he is a retired IPS officer, amazing researcher. He has collected from an Indian text 26 plus definitions of a yuga. Okay, then I said 26 is a small number, so I added 10 more from the text, you know. But I will just simplify in 4 different ways. Sometimes yuga even doesn't mean a time. Okay, I'll give you a quick thing. So basically there is no connection, that is the answer. But there are different types of yuga. For example, sometimes it is based on your act, nothing to do with the time. Aitareya Brahmana, which is a Brahman Grantha connected with the Rigveda. Brahman Grantha is like a manual, operations manual, repair manual, maintenance manual. Okay, when you are doing a yajna, what to do, when to start. So do you know what it says? I'll skip the Sanskrit part. Everyone knows Sanskrit anyways. We'll go to the next one where it says when you are sleeping, you are in a Kali Yuga. When you get up and sit up there, you are in a Dwapar. When you stand up like what I'm standing right now, you are in a Treta. And when you actually get working, start walking, you are in a Satya Yuga. Stay in Satya Yuga. Charayaveti, Charayaveti, Charayaveti. Keep on walking, keep on walking. Where comes the question of like, so the whole yugas can be done in 5 minutes, all 4 yugas. There is another one. Have you heard the Einstein statement, like if you are sitting with a beautiful lady for 1 hour, it feels like a minute? How many of you have that experience? Okay. And if you are sitting on a hot plate for a minute, it feels like an hour. You have heard that, right? Do you know that Einstein actually did this experiment? Einstein actually did. Hot plate and sitting with a beautiful lady too. 1938 he published a paper in Journal of Exothermic Sciences. Okay, he borrowed Charlie Chaplin's wife because he needed a beautiful lady. He traveled from New Jersey, you can read on Google, New Jersey to New York in an oyster bar in Manhattan. And when he was very methodical. When he felt like hour has gone back, he looked at the watch, 57 minutes. He said, let's summarize that to hour, approximate to hour. and he felt like he was sitting with for 1 minute with that beautiful lady, Mrs. Chaplin. Then he took a train, came to New Jersey, his residence, and sat on a hot plate, and you know the story, okay? Then he wrote the paper. My point is, that is not just his experience. How many of you have heard the name Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? People from, of course, Bengal would know, right? His disciples, like the 6 Goswamis, they wrote a lot of stuff, philosophical stuff. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is attributed with 8 verses. One of the verse he says, he was a great Krishna Bhakta, Radha Bhakta, Krishna Bhakta. He says, Yugayatam, Yuga. Yugayatam Nimeshena. You know what Nimesh is? Like blinking of an eye, just for simplicity. Yugayatam Nimeshena. Chakshusha Praurushayatam. Crying. Chakshusha, like a Praurusha, like a rain. Chakshusha Praurushayatam. Shunyaditam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Virahename. If I feel the separation from Govinda even for a blink of an eye, that much time, it feels like a yuga to me. This is an emotional state, nothing to do with the chronological time. Quickly, 2 more. That million things we are talking, 432,000, 864,000, and 3 times is a Treta and 4 times is that. Do you know where it comes from? Yeah, but what is the origin of it and the purpose? Its purpose is astronomy, to precisely represent the orbital periods of Mercury, Venus, Moon, Sun, Jupiter, Saturn. You can see, so what it says, if you go to Surya Siddhanta or Aryabhatiya, it says in the 4.32 million cycles of the Sun, Moon does these many cycles, Venus does these many cycles. So you take the ratio times 365.2422 days, you know the orbital period of that particular planet in days. You follow what I'm saying? The ratio. That was the only purpose. Somebody with a, I don't know, maybe Somaras, okay, took that cycle and applied it to chronology, and that has made all the difference. So that's the answer. Tell me the time and how many questions we can take. Yeah, go ahead.
So, go back to the, you talk about different editions of Mahabharata. So, and then you have critical edition, that is published in So, how do they actually your verses, like you have selected few verses, right, to date the Ramayana and Mahabharata. So, they all agree.
So your question is, some of the verses that say I was quoting or the 300 references I am referring to, are they there in the critical edition?
No, are they in different editions also?
They are there in different editions. Some editions might be missing them. Some editions actually may have a variant reading. For example, remember I gave you example, Somasya Putra Abhidhaya Tiryak. Somaputra is a Mercury. But in some text you see Yamasya Putra Abhidhaya Tiryak. Now I'll tell you how the researchers play with this game. Okay, so on the 17th day of the war, you have to say Somasya Putra Abhyudaya Tiryak. Abhyuday, like came up, rose. Okay, Mercury rose in a Tiryak fashion. Whatever the Tiryak means, will not go there. Those people who cannot show Mercury or cannot show Mercury on the west, because it's the evening description, so it has to be on the west side, and their Mercury is not to be seen. Do you know what they say? They go for that other reading. Yamasya Putra Abhidaya Tiryak, the son of Yama. And then they say, son of Yama. Well, I don't know what planet is that, because it's clear that it's astronomy description. Okay, what can I do? Let's move to the next reference. That's the game. Like, you know how you remove the error? Outlier. Just kidding. Outlier, that's troubling me, so put it there. Something of that nature. So it's just to answer your question. In fact, I will put it in a very simple way. All the available editions, available text of different manuscripts of Mahabharata, take any manuscript and whatever evidence is available in it will take you to 5561 BC. Yeah, but you understood the first one. Okay, go ahead.
So, it is also said, or there is a theory that some of the verses were injected during the Mughal period.
Correct. So if you could not hear, he said, but there it has been said that some of the verses were injected into the Mughal period. Okay, it might have been, might not have been, but who has the burden? Burden of proof, I mean. The person who is claiming that some of the verses were injected into Mughal period. Now, I am not putting it on you, but are you aware of what those verses are?
I mean, sometimes when they don't agree with the...
No, don't go there. Mughal period, we are talking in Mughal period. Are you aware of those verses yourself? No. Who did you hear it from? Just kind of hearsay, right? Not a specific person. Do you know any? Correct, but see, this is called, I mean, what you say, perpetual going backwards, right? So it's documented in that book. So we have to ask the question to that book guy, like saying, where did you get it from? Are you with me? Okay. How many of you have heard the name Christopher Hitchens? Okay, the famous atheist and something, right? Christopher Hitchens, amazing guy. Have you heard of Hitchens razor? No? A claim made without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. That is the answer. Okay, that's Hitchens razor. So the point I'm saying is the burden of proof is on that person who is saying some verses were interpolated in Mughal times. I'm not denying, I'm not saying that that would not have happened, but I want to see the evidence. And in what way it affect? What way it affect the things? I mean, were there some astronomy verses that were done there? Still what happens is, say, Viveka Buddhi, like Ramdas Swami's, Dasa Buddhi is great. So you can always use that. For example, you go to a grocer and you buy chawal. You come home and then you say, oh my God, I see some stones in it. These days it may not be there, but when I grew up, like we have to clean the thing and something like this. You just don't go to the grocer and, I mean, unless there are like too many stones, you don't go to the grocer and says, look, you sold me chawal, what is this? No, our mothers just started doing this, removing in this. So we understand there will be few stones. Similarly, these errors will always be there. Our experiments has errors. Mundaka Upanishad has a beautiful verse, Satyena labhyas tapasa yesha atma samyak. This is a science. This is a science philosophy. Satyena labhyas tapasa yesha atma samyak. Yesterday we said it. Samyak jnanena brahmacharyena nityam. Antah sharire jyotirmayo hi shubhram yam paschanti yataya kshina dosha. Even when you cannot completely remove the error, even when the error remains, like the kind of mistakes that might have entered, if you can do this minimization of error sufficient enough, kshina dosha, you can still know what the truth is. Isn't that what we do in our experiments? We take 3 titrations, doesn't mean we have got the accurate answers, but enough to move on. And tomorrow we'll talk how Indian philosophy, Indian science was extremely practical, extremely pragmatic. If you say, what is dharma? We say, oh my God, don't ask me such tough questions and must be very complicated and boring. If you go to Vaisheshika Sutra, what does it say? Yato abhyudaya nishreyasa siddhi sadharma. That thing which allows you to prosper and also find the ultimate happiness, that is dharma. Ultimate and lasting happiness. Because if I just say ultimate, you will say, oh, beer does that. Okay? It's temporary, a lasting happiness. Okay? 2 more questions, okay? Rajaram Mohan Roy, alumnus of IIT Kanpur. And somebody was from Ohio State. You were at Ohio State, right? Did you meet him? Was he contemporary of yours? No. So he also did his material science, I think, metallurgy. He did his PhD in metallurgy. He's in Toronto. He's Canadian just like me. I'm a Canadian, I'm American, and of course OCI, so overseas citizen of India. So what is the question? He's wrong, but go on. No, just kidding.
Most of the time when I have got his comments, he can mail when I have quoted you work.
Yeah, he says Nilesh is wrong. He's a fraud. Okay, so you should. How many of you have seen? Like, how many of you have typed? Is Nilesh Oak a fraud? Type it afterwards in Google. You're going to get Dr. Rajaram Mohan Roy. Okay.
For this thing, he has written
Mail to you. Okay, good, very good. And still you came. Maybe because of it you came. Yeah. Yeah. Right. So what is your sort of a question? Because I can answer about Rajaram Mohan Roy. About his counter argument. Okay. The camera is there. Okay. So here is my chance. Finally, camera. Okay. So for example, I mean, what is good about him? Okay. Anytime before you critique someone, you better say good things about him. Well, he is an alumnus of IIT Kanpur. He also successfully completed his PhD at Ohio State University, doing a successful career. I don't know exactly. I have never met him, no details. I have communicated with him before. Before he went sour, I taught him astronomy. Many people may not know that. Even after he has written the books, the zero, you know his books? Like a 0 point of Jain astronomy, 0 point of Hindu astronomy. Even after he has written the books, I have taught him astronomy because he came to me. Okay? But something went sour. Actually, think about it. Some of the people who turn into your enemies, you will notice that they were very close to you before. Okay, something like this. I don't know what has gone sour. I have never said bad words to him, nothing. I did not even know about him because many people come and ask me about astronomy. I respond to them, not just astronomy, how to do research. In fact, in America, I'm not talking Mahabharata and Ramayana. Yeah, actually, yeah, 2013, let me complete. 2013, I left my full-time job. I do consulting. People pay me anywhere from $300, $500 per hour to just talk to me, guys, and not about Mahabharata. Okay, in the corporate world and research, how research labs and so on and so forth. So people just come to me even how to do research or how to do efficient research, design of experiments, random, whatever it is. So so many people come in the Mahabharata, they come, I responded that, I don't know. Even he has written a book, by the way, if you go in the social media, 12,000, how the Ramayana is not correct date or something. So what do I have to say? So I said, well, these are all good things. He has the nice pedigree and so. He is wrong when he's telling that what the date I have come up with is wrong. He's wrong about that. If you read, how many of you have read his book, the 12,209? Have you read? No, you should read it. See, because I'll come to you, sir, in a second. Actually, you should read it. See, Samshaya, okay, that's a doubt. Now, see, if I would have said Nilesh Oak says 12,209 and nobody is saying anything about Ramayana, until somebody comes, 12,209 BCE is the one. But now somebody comes, now he doesn't have a date, that's the problem. Do you know what this is called? How many of you have heard the word in the Indian context, Vitanda? Okay? Yeah, so he gives so Bhagwan Gautama in Nyaya Darshana, we should study Nyaya Darshana, he gives a definition of a Vitanda. Swapratipakša sthapana hino Vitanda. I am objecting to someone's claim, I don't have my claim, I am doing Vitanda. In science, what do you say? Okay, so you think that's wrong, so what is right? And it's just not there. So there must be something frustrating on his part. I don't know his psychological things. I am glad that he has written the book. Many people come to me and says, I wasn't aware of you, but there is some guy, Dr. Rajaram Mohan Roy. I came across it, and because of that, I came to know of your wonderful research. So I thank him. Okay, he is wrong. He is a disaster, but I thank him. That is what I have to say. Yeah. Last question. Huh? Yes, you said it correct. Who are Vanaras? Anyone from Karnataka here? The residents of Hampi. No, yeah, correct. Anyone from Karnataka? No, my good friend Dr. Shiva Shastri is from Bengaluru, retired surgeon. So like people on my talks, they say, oh, coach, but who were those Vanaras? I say, look at Dr. Shiva Shastri. Okay, that's how they look, but go on, yeah. Okay, so what is your question? I get it. So where they are different humanoid species, is that your question?
Humans coexisted in the Indian society at that time. Do we have any scientific evidence?
Okay, but you are first making the premise that actually there were different human species and they were mixed together. That is your, no, hold on. But that is your theory and you are saying now, Nilesh, bring a evidence for it. No, who has the burden of proof? If that is your theory, that's not my theory for Vanaras. Okay? There is another IIT, thank you. There is another IIT alumnus, not from Kanpur, from Mumbai, my good friend Yashodip Devdar, okay? Electrical engineer, a business. Now he sold the business, made enough money. Now he focuses on teaching Ramayana. In YouTube, you have to go, how many of you have done this 21 notes, 2-1 and notes, right? You just go and type who are Vanaras. With specific references from Valmiki Ramayana, it tells you who are the Ramayanas. Just like who are the Sikhs. Sikhs are Jats, but in a certain Jat family, the first son is given for a protection, something like that. I don't know the exact details. but just that person became a Sikh, in the old times, like 500 years ago or whatnot. Similarly, Vanaras are specific people. I mean, from ordinary families, they have come there and taken this thing. And so they are, so your theory could be true, but the burden of proof is on you. That is not my theory at all. They were just human beings just like us, dedicated to a certain purpose and so on and so forth. 21 notes and you can say who are Vanaras. We'll stop on this. Did you guys have some fun? Okay, I'll see you tomorrow. Please.
And then the group, the close will be a transition of this talk and the
Okay. Thank you everyone for staying through. Okay.